In 1974, John Lennon was in the middle of performing live when a drunk heckler screamed something so brutal it stopped the entire band cold. 45,000 people fell silent, waiting to see if the razor-tongued Beatle would destroy this man on stage. But what Lennon did next wasn't what anyone expected. Not the crowd, not his bandmates, and certainly not the heckler himself. What could John Lennon possibly say or do in that moment that would leave tens of thousands of people speechless and talking about it for decades? November 28th, 1974, Madison Square Garden. The air inside is thick, cigarette smoke curling under stage lights, the smell of beer and sweat mixing with anticipation. A sea of bodies packed into seats that creak and groan under restless weight. It's Elton John's Thanksgiving concert, and the crowd has been loud all night, but now there's a shift in the atmosphere. A buzz, a rumour spreading row by row, whispered between strangers who suddenly become conspirators sharing a secret. John Lennon is here. John Lennon is backstage. The energy transforms from excitement to something electric, dangerous. People crane their necks toward the wings, squinting through the haze, hoping to catch a glimpse of something, anything. In the wings, hidden by heavy curtains and equipment cases stacked like a fortress, John stands with his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He's wearing his usual uniform, denim jacket worn soft at the elbows, round glasses catching fragments of stage light and throwing them back in fractured pieces. But his fingers won't stop moving, tapping against his thighs in no particular rhythm. Reaching up to adjust his glasses even though they don't need adjusting. Touching the guitar strap that hangs heavy across his shoulder, like a weight he forgot he used to carry, back when carrying it felt like freedom instead of obligation. Mei Pang stands a few feet away. Watching him with concern, she's trying to hide behind a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. She knows what this means. She's been with him through the worst of it. She knows he hasn't performed live in front of a crowd like this since the Beatles fell apart. Not since that cold, chaotic rooftop in January 1969, when everything ended and the world didn't even know it yet. Elton's voice booms through the speakers, finishing another song, something bombastic and joyful. The crowd roars their approval, a sound like an ocean crashing against rocks. John closes his eyes and takes a breath that doesn't quite fill his lungs. His chest feels tight, constricted. This was supposed to be a joke. A bet between friends over drinks and laughter. He told Elton that whatever gets you through the night would never hit number one, and if it did, he'd come out and perform it live. They shook on it, laughed about it, and then the impossible happened. The song hit number one, and now here he is, backstage at Madison Square Garden, feeling like he's about to walk off a cliff with no idea if there's water below or just rocks waiting to break him. His hands are trembling slightly. He can see them shaking when he holds them up to the light. He hasn't had a drink in 2 hours, and his body's reminding him of that fact with every nerve ending. The lost weekend, they're calling it, this year and a half of chaos, of trying to run from himself in Los Angeles, of waking up in places he doesn't remember going to with people whose names he never learned. But it's almost over now. Almost. Yoko is talking to him again. Small conversations, careful words. Maybe there's a way back. Maybe. Elton finishes his song, and the applause crashes like a wave against a seawall. Through a gap in the curtain, John can see the mass of faces stretching back into darkness, row after row disappearing into shadow. Kids holding signs with his name, parents, teenagers, the entire garden waiting for something, always waiting for something from him. He hears Elton's voice on the mic now, teasing the crowd, building the moment with the skill of a showman who knows exactly how to work a room. The crowd senses it. They start to scream before Elton even says the name, and when he does, "Please welcome my good friend John Lennon," the sound is deafening. It's love and hunger and demand all rolled into one overwhelming roar that feels like it might crush him. John steps forward. The light hits him like a physical force, blinding, exposing. He walks onto that stage carrying more than just a guitar. The roar doesn't stop. It builds and builds until it feels like the garden itself might shake apart. John raises one hand in a small wave, and the crowd loses whatever composure it had left. Grown men are crying. Teenagers are screaming themselves hoarse. He can't see their faces anymore. Just a sea of movement and noise pressing in from all sides, demanding everything he has and more. He tries to smile, but his face feels frozen. Muscles that forgot how to make that particular shape. Once this felt natural. Once this was home. Back when he was 23 and the world was new and 4 boys from Liverpool could do no wrong, he and Paul and George and Ringo used to feed off this energy, turn it into something electric and alive that felt like magic. But that was a lifetime ago. That was before the breakup, before the lawsuits, before Alan Klein and Phil Spector and all the men in suits who turned brotherhood into business. Before he became the villain in his own story. Before he understood that being a Beatle wasn't just fame. It was a cage that looked like a stage, and the bars were made of love and expectation, and the weight of the world's nostalgia. He straps on the guitar and his fingers find the strings out of muscle memory. But they feel strange now. Like instruments he hasn't touched in years. Because he hasn't. Not like this. Not with stakes. Not with 45,000 people watching his every move, waiting for him to be the person they remember, the person he's not sure he ever really was. He glances at Elton, who gives him an encouraging nod. That confident smile that seems to say everything will be fine. The band starts the opening chords of Whatever Gets You Through the Night. Disco-tinged, modern, nothing like the Beatles. Maybe that's the point. John leans into the microphone, opens his mouth, and his voice cracks on the first word. Just slightly. Just enough that he hears it, even if the crowd doesn't. Panic flashes through him, hot and immediate and familiar as an old enemy. The old fear that never really left. What if he's lost it? What if this is the moment everyone realizes he's just a 34-year-old man who doesn't know who he is anymore, who spent his youth being a Beatle, and now has to figure out how to be John Lennon, whoever that is? But the crowd doesn't care. They erupt anyway, screaming the words back at him, arms in the air like they're reaching for something divine, joy on their faces pure and uncomplicated. They don't see the cracks. They don't see the man who spent the last 18 months drowning in whiskey and regret in Los Angeles, who alienated everyone who loved him, who pushed Yoko away because he was terrified of being vulnerable, of being known. They don't see the nights he can't remember and the mornings he wishes he couldn't. They see the myth, the legend, John Lennon, the Beatle, the clever one, the rebel, the voice of a generation. And that's the problem. That's always been the problem. He hasn't been John Lennon in years. He's been the idea of John Lennon, a character he plays for cameras and journalists and fans who want him to be everything except what he is, scared and tired and human. His voice steadies as the song continues. He falls into the rhythm, instinct taking over where courage fails. The lights are hot on his face and sweat is already forming at his temples, running down behind his glasses. He can feel his heart pounding against his ribs, adrenaline and withdrawal, and another feeling, one that might be hope, might be desperation, mixing in his bloodstream. Perhaps this is what gets him through the night. Standing here, exposed and afraid, might be exactly what he needs. The song builds toward the chorus, and for a moment, just a moment, he almost believes he can do this, that he's still enough, that perhaps he hasn't lost everything. For 3 minutes and 47 seconds, he believes it. Then everything changes. The second verse hits and John is finding his rhythm now. His voice is stronger. The guitar feels less like a stranger in his hands. The audience moves as one organism, swaying and singing, and for the first time in months, possibly years, he feels a measure of peace. The lights blur the faces into impressions, movement, colour, sound. He closes his eyes for a moment and just lets the music carry him. This is why he started. Before the screaming got so loud they couldn't hear themselves play. Before the death threats and the FBI files and the deportation hearings. Before everything became about more than just the music. Then he hears it. A voice cutting through the wall of sound like a knife through fabric. Slurred. Angry. Male. Loud enough that the microphones catch it. "You're nothing without Paul!" The words land like a punch. John's fingers stumble on the fretboard. The note goes sour. The band wavers behind him. The drummer loses the beat for half a second. The bass player glances over with wide eyes. John's hand locks on the strings. The song doesn't stop completely, but it fractures, becomes dissonant and wrong. The crowd hears it. The singing falters. Every person in the garden suddenly unsure of what's happening. John's eyes snap open and scan the front rows. There, about 20 feet from the stage, a man in his 20s, Long hair, denim jacket, swaying like he might fall over. His face is red, angry, drunk. He's still yelling, words tumbling over each other, jabbing his finger toward the stage. The people around him are trying to restrain him, embarrassed. But he shrugs them off. Sell out. You killed the Beatles. Nothing without them. The old John Lennon would have destroyed this man. The razor-sharp wit that could slice someone to ribbons in front of millions. The sarcasm that made journalists weep. That John is right there, ready, coiled like a spring. He can feel the words forming in his mouth, cutting, brutal, the kind of response that would make headlines and put this drunk idiot in his place and remind everyone who John Lennon is. The audience is waiting for it. He senses their anticipation. They want the show, the spectacle, the Beatle putting someone in their place. But then something shifts. John looks at the heckler, really looks at him. Past the anger and the slurred words, he sees the desperation in the man's eyes, the pain. This isn't about Paul. This is about loss, about a precious thing that broke and can never be fixed. And John knows that feeling. He's been living inside that feeling for 4 years. The heckler is screaming at him, but he's really screaming at the world, at time, at the fact that nothing golden stays. John sees himself in that drunk, broken face. Sees the kid he used to be in Liverpool, angry at everything, lashing out because it was easier than admitting he was terrified. The garden is silent now. Completely silent. Every soul in the garden holding their breath. Elton has stopped playing. The band has stopped. Even the heckler has gone quiet, perhaps realizing what he's done, perhaps just waiting for the axe to fall. John's guitar hangs from his shoulder, forgotten. His hands are at his sides. The overhead spots bore down on him, and he stands there, exposed, at a crossroads. He can be the myth, the legend, the untouchable John Lennon who destroys anyone who challenges him. Or he can be something else, someone he's been too afraid to be for a very long time. John's hands move to the guitar strap, slowly. He lifts it over his head and hands the guitar to a stagehand who appears from the wings. The audience murmurs, confused whispers rippling through the darkness. What is he doing? Elton stands motionless at his piano, watching. John walks to the edge of the stage, his boots are loud against the wood in the silence. Each step echoes. He reaches the front and kneels down. The stage is high, but he gets as low as he can, one knee on the wooden planks, and he extends his hand down toward the heckler. The drunk man stares up at him. Tears are forming in his eyes now. The anger has drained from his face and left something raw and wounded behind. John's voice, when it comes, is soft, but the microphone clipped to his collar catches every word and sends it through the speakers to every corner of the garden. "Hey, mate," a pause. The whole garden leans in. "I know, I miss him too." The heckler's face crumples. His friends have stopped trying to pull him down. They're motionless too. Everyone is locked in place. John keeps his hand extended, steady and offering. His voice stays gentle. There's no sarcasm, no edge, just truth. "It's gone. I know it's gone. And I'm sorry. I miss it too. Every day." He takes a breath and it shudders slightly through the speakers. Every person in the garden hears John Lennon's vulnerability in that breath. But we're here now, you and me, all of us. And maybe that's enough. Maybe we can just be here together. The heckler reaches up, his hand is shaking. John takes it, holds it firmly. Not a handshake, just connection, human to human. The man is crying openly now, and John squeezes his hand once before letting go. He stays kneeling there for another moment, looking at the man, then at the people around him. He nods, at them, at the moment, at something bigger than all of them. Then John stands, turns back to the stage, takes his guitar from the stagehand, straps it on, looks at Elton and the band. They're looking at him like they've never seen him before. Perhaps they haven't. Perhaps nobody has. He nods and they start playing again, soft at first, then building. John steps back to the microphone and finishes "Whatever Gets You Through the Night." And his voice doesn't crack this time. It's steady, clear, real. The audience doesn't just applaud when the song ends. The sound that comes from them is different, deeper. It's not screaming for the Beatle or the legend or the icon. It's closer to reverence, to recognition. They saw a man choose kindness when the world expected a fight. They saw someone step out of his own mythology and just be human. John stands there in the lights, breathing hard, and for the first time in years he doesn't feel like he's performing. He feels present, alive, enough. The moment will ripple outward from this evening, through conversations and memories and retellings. People will talk about it for decades. Not because John Lennon was clever or cutting or cool, but because he was brave enough to be kind, brave enough to see his own pain reflected in a stranger's eyes, and respond not with the armour he'd built around himself, but with the vulnerability underneath. That night at Madison Square Garden, no one in that garden saw a Beatle. They saw what it looks like when someone chooses to be human instead of a hero, and that was more powerful than any song.